fire rings throughout. Africa is a continent ravaged by civil wars.
The United Nations, along with the Ivorian people, 4 months of difficult moment, at last, we prevailed.
During the recent political crisis in Côte d'Ivoire, the United Nations appointed a guardian of peace, Korea's veteran diplomat, Choi Young Jin. Located in West Africa and touching the Gulf of Guinea is the Republic of Côte d'Ivoire. Thanks to its economy based on agriculture, in particular cocoa, Côte d'Ivoire has prospered, enjoying a relatively high income per capita. Peace has again returned to Côte d'Ivoire. The 2010 presidential election, in which then-President Laurent Gbagbo was defeated, divided the nation, triggering a crisis. Violence only ceased with the arrest of Gbagbo in April. Currently, the ousted leader is in custody, awaiting trial. To put behind the past and focus on the future, Ivorians are now working hard towards rebuilding their nation. Festivities such as this have been held to celebrate peace across Côte d'Ivoire. This particular festival was dedicated to then UN Special Representative for Côte d'Ivoire, Choi Young Jin. To the Ivorians, Choi is their guardian angel.
La population m'a demandé de vous dire, Monsieur Choi. Au nom de Monsieur le maire, au nom de la municipalité et du conseil municipal d'Abobo, mais surtout au nom de toute la population d'Abobo, pour votre présence ici, vous et vos collaborateurs. Merci à Monsieur Choi. Monsieur Choi, Choi rime avec liberté. Choi rime avec libérateur. Monsieur Choi a libéré les populations d'Abobo. Monsieur Choi a libéré les populations d'Abidjan.
The latest civil war in Côte d'Ivoire was brought to an end by this peacemaker. As a UN Special Representative, Choi played a pivotal role in finding peace for the war-torn nation.
Because the United Nations was invited to certify the elections for the first time in Africa. So we are here to safeguard the democracy in Côte d'Ivoire, and we succeeded.
In Côte d'Ivoire's largest city, Abidjan, we met Choi at his residence as he headed to work. This has been Choi's home for over 4 years.
It's important for you to start the day with a positive frame of mind. That's what I'm trying to do. You have to welcome the challenge the day prepares for you and devise ways to overcome those challenges in cooperation with your colleagues. That's how I start the day.
Not far from Choi's residence is the UN headquarters. In November 2007, Choi took up his post as the UN Special Representative for Côte d'Ivoire. At the time, the African nation was mired in political turmoil. Among the reasons, namely power brokering and a lack of disarmament, its presidential election had been put on hold for years. Back then, no solution appeared to be in sight. That's when UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon launched what many had deemed to be a mission impossible. He appointed Che to lead the search for a peaceful resolution to the political deadlock. Initially, however, Côte d'Ivoire was reluctant to the idea.
It was a compromise because my post was vacant for about 1 year, because then Ivory Coast President Laurent Gbagbo wanted to have an African SRSG, special representative. On the other hand, United Nations system wanted to have a Western European SRSG. So there is a deadlock about 1 year, and Secretary General Ban Ki-moon had this idea about Asian, who is neither African nor European. So that compromise was accepted.
Since the founding of UNOC, those at the helm didn't last more than a year. That is, before Che stepped in. In a dangerous place, Che survived some 4 years and laid the groundwork for Côte d'Ivoire's presidential election.
We had a very, very close working relationship because we had the same objective for the first 3 years. With the arrival of me in this post, the mandate changed. Before me, the mandate was to confront him. After my arrival, the mandate was to cooperate with him, so I had nothing to provoke him or have a difficult relationship with him. So we had excellent 3 years relationship with him.
Under Che's command, Côte d'Ivoire was ready for a presidential poll in 2010. That after a series of delays over 5 years. The election pitted then-President Laurent Gbagbo, who had clung to power for a decade, against former Prime Minister and opposition leader Alassane Ouattara. The UN-fronted efforts to get people to come out and vote. UN-led campaigns were held across the nation. As the man in charge, Che also took to the streets to persuade the Ivorians to vote. On November 28th, amid concerns over possible unrest, presidential polls opened in Côte d'Ivoire. As feared, the election sparked a new struggle for power. Its results were quickly challenged. Then President Gbagbo refused to cede power. Instead, he claimed election fraud in the strongholds of his challenger, Ouattara, and demanded a partial annulment. Subsequently, Gbagbo's ally on the Constitutional Council ruled in favor of the incumbent leader. Ending a 4-month wait, Che revealed the result of Côte d'Ivoire's presidential election as confirmed by international observers. Surrounded by UN peacekeepers and the Ivorians, he named the true winner.
La volonté du peuple, c'est qu'il a choisi une personne et non deux comme vainqueur de l'élection présidentielle. Le peuple ivoirien a choisi le candidat Alassane Ouattara avec un écart incontestable sur le candidat Laurent Gbagbo comme le vainqueur.
The UN declared then opposition leader Ouattara as the new president. But Gbagbo and his supporters rejected the outcome.
But President Gbagbo lost, but he defied the will of the people with the military forces. We said clearly that he lost the election, he must leave. Then he wanted us to leave. We refused, naturally. Then he began harassing our civilian staff, attacking our military forces.
Gbagbo's refusal to step down triggered tension and violence. Backed by his tribe, some 55,000 troops were deployed to consolidate Gbagbo's power in Abidjan. Civilians and UN peacekeepers became their targets. Hundreds of lives were lost in the ensuing violence. Even UN envoy Che became a target of attack.
These are the bullets I collected inside UNOC compound here during the crisis. And this one is particularly interesting because over there and penetrated this aluminum frame then went to the wall. This bullet came from that direction and hit the wall, ricocheted here, and embedded in the map. You see the entrance there?
Within a close range of 150 meters, Côte d'Ivoire's defense ministry, located next to the presidential palace, fired shots at the UN headquarters on a daily basis.
White building with a green top, that is presidential palace. So Gbagbo was there. I was here. I spent a lot of time here in the evening, looking at the cars, people come and go, and thinking what Gbagbo may be thinking.
At the UN headquarters, refuge was sought in the underground bunker.
This was our CP, commanding post during the crisis, when our office was under heavy attack by Gbagbo's special forces. For about 4 months, we came down here quite often to work in safety.
In addition to the UN staff, several hundred civilians spent 4 months hiding out here. Côte d'Ivoire's post-electoral crisis quickly ravaged this city. Around this village, signs of the painful past prevail. Villagers slain by pro-Gbagbo forces could only be buried in haste. They lie here, at this shabby gravesite.
Ah non, on ne pouvait pas aller au cimetière parce que les pro-Gbagbo étaient dans la ville. C'est eux qui étaient là, on ne pouvait pas bouger. Et on les a enterrés le 14 parce que déjà le 12, quand ils ont tué là, les corps ont commencé à s'enfler. Jusqu'au 14 maintenant, on a vu que les corps étaient enflés. Ce sont les hommes du quartier même qui étaient obligés d'enterrer. Et ils ont enterré dans la peur. Parce que si on les voit en train d'enterrer, on va les tuer. Et les corps ont commencé à s'enfler. La population ne peut pas supporter l'odeur.
The post-election unrest claimed more than 1,500 lives. Many of the victims were killed in cold blood. Anger persists among the surviving family members.
Quand ils sont rentrés, il a demandé des choses ceux qui sont dans la cour de donner les portables. Ils ont tout donné les portables et en même temps, il a dit de donner tout ce qu'ils ont comme l'argent. Ils ont tout donné et ce que le petit frère il a tout enlevé, donné. Et quand il a enlevé, il a attendu que voilà ce qu'il a et en même temps, il a tué froidement comme ça.
Since that tragic day, laughter can no longer be heard in this household. The mother clings onto a picture of the son she lost. The pain portrayed on her face is a reminder of the dark past.
Elle se sent triste, elle est abattue. On sent que chaque jour, elle pleure la mort de son fils. Souvent même, elle dit que sa vie n'a plus de sens. On venait abattre son fils devant lui froidement.
Without rhyme or reason, Gbagbo's forces killed just about anyone they crossed paths with, women and children alike. One man lost at the polls, but in the end, the entire nation paid a high price.
When we entered the month of April this year, I knew that the end was near, very near, because Gbagbo was resorting to extreme measures. That was a sure sign that his end was nearing.
As violence spiraled, the UN intervened and deployed forces across Abidjan. And Special Representative Choi Young Jin was placed in charge.
I can remember several occasions that I led the military civilian staff dangerous area. The most dangerous was when I went to the national television station during the night. I was ambushed my car was attacked, hit, but the APC proceeding, my car APC proceeding, which followed me, they were both hit by bullets. But fortunately, my own car was not hit by bullets. I felt very lucky.
From 2,000 to 10,000, the UN expanded its presence. But with 55,000 fighters loyal to Gbagbo roaming around, times were precarious. On several occasions, Che's life was at stake. The fight for the control of Côte d'Ivoire finally ended on April 11th. That's when Gbagbo was arrested.
We were not directly involved in his arrest. He was arrested by the pro-Ouattara military forces. But we were instrumental in that we mounted a military strike against his heavy weapons. So I think pro-Ouattara forces made the most of our military airstrike. It was the first time in peacekeeping history. The peacekeeping mission staged an airstrike against military forces of the host country. And it was a success. So I felt relieved because that his arrest meant the end of a chapter, painful chapter for the Ivorian people, where during which time around 3,000 people were killed. And we suffered mightily also. At times we didn't have enough to eat on the siege.
Abandoned now and in ruins. Holed up in his residence, Gbagbo fought till the end.
This was the waiting room.
Then President Gbagbo would lead me to this place, which is his office.
I had my first meeting with him here, and my last substantive meeting also here, for 1 hour each.
Che's efforts to negotiate with Gbagbo were largely in vain. No compromise could be reached.
This is the bunker, the basement of the building. They spent the last day here. When I met him for the last time for the substantive meeting on 1st of December, he knew that he lost the election. So I asked him if we do not accept the result of the election, defying the will of the people, and this may entail violences, many deaths. He was a professor of history. Asked him one question point blank, Mr. President, what do you think your place would be in history if you refuse to accept the result of the election? He couldn't say anything. Then later he said, but I cannot abdicate because of this fear. Abdicate is not a democratic term for president. This is a term for kings, who is there for life. So at that moment, I knew that he would never accept the will of the people in a peaceful way.
Gbagbo's bid to cling to power through perpetual maneuvering and election postponements failed. This because democracy has no room for dictators. Gbagbo's former presidential palace, in ruins, is a reminder for all. Now a home to the UN forces, this used to be Gbagbo's military base.
La location privée, en fait, n'a pas jamais arrêté ceci.
Upon news of Gbagbo's arrest, Che met with the incumbent President Ouattara here. Together they mapped out a future course of action. In the end, Che suggested sending Gbagbo to Korogo City in the northern part of Côte d'Ivoire.
Il avait une grande capacité de voir loin venir les choses. Et quand il avait son idée, il était prêt à mourir pour défendre cette idée-là. Donc c'est un homme extrêmement déterminé dans son action et dans ses convictions.
Here, Che last saw Gbagbo.
I came here, I remember the 13th of April, when President Ouattara asked to see him, so I came to see him. We discussed about what to do with President Gbagbo, who was in one of the rooms. And we decided to transport him to Korogo in our helicopter. General Kosi escorted with Ouattara's security forces President Gbagbo to the helipad. I was in the car to see him off. So around 12:30, the helicopter flew away. Then I called the police to call to New York to talk to Secretary General Ban Ki-moon to report him that the job is done. And he said, well done. So that was 13th of April, departure of President Gbagbo from here to Korogo.
To a nation deeply scarred by months of infighting, Che broke the welcome news of peace. Che's work was far from over. A new chapter of peace was opening in Côte d'Ivoire. Rebuilding a devastated nation became his priority. To this end, he quickly resumed work. And for the new challenge, Che's loyal team of people accompanied him again, as they had done for 4 years.
So he's a man of the world. He doesn't belong to a country or to a continent. He belongs to the whole world. That's what is interesting with Choi. And that's why whenever you deal with him, you learn.
Personally, I think he's a very good example of what special representative is about. Special representative is somebody who represents all the aspirations of all the nations in one. So it is someone who has to have a keen understanding of the international dimension and the principles that the international community would like to transfer. And he did an extremely good job in showing that impartiality, which is what the United Nations is all about.
In Côte d'Ivoire, Che is a national hero. Thanks to his resilience, the country's civil war triggered by a pole dispute had ended. For that, the Ivorians only have gratitude and respect for Che. These days, the UN is overseeing efforts to restore stability in Côte d'Ivoire. The organization is also spearheading reconstruction projects to rebuild homes, schools, hospitals, and infrastructure destroyed by the recent civil strife.
We had launched a 100 quick impact project operation. At the same time, we found out many ex-combatants who retired from the army. But if they do not have any job, then they will be tempted to again use their guns to disturb the order and peace of the country. So I launched a project which is called 10,000 micro projects.
To help former fighters, micro projects have been launched. Individuals are given $1,000 to restart their lives. Traore Ferryman used to fight for Gbagbo. Now she's resumed work as a seamstress.
Grâce à lui, aujourd'hui, je ne dors pas à la maison. Je ne suis plus combattante et je gagne ma vie. Donc je lui dis toujours merci et nous prions pour lui. S'il peut faire plus, ça nous fera encore plaisir.
In her hand is no longer a gun. It's a needle with which she dreams of a brighter future.
Before these projects, Ivorian people did not really understand why United Nations have a mission here, even though we explained that we have a peacekeeping objectives for them, but they were asking what are the real benefits for us. So we satisfied this fundamental question of Ivorians with these two operations.
Recently, Che launched a personal mission of sorts. It's to write about Côte d'Ivoire's recent post-election civil war. His ultimate goal is to help other war-torn African nations win their battle for peace.
Because many people are writing articles talking about events in Cote d'Ivoire, which would not necessarily reflect the facts, as I know. So I realized the history is the one who live his experience as a record. So I decided to leave my experience in the record for the sake of historical correctness.
Previous publications by Che focused on the cultures of the East and the West. The career diplomat strongly believes that cultural understandings are key to finding compromises, even in difficult situations.
Since my arrival about 3.5 years ago, as an Asian, as a Korean, I have been trying to make a harmony between our culture and Western civilization.
Through constantly interacting with his international staff, Che learns about different cultures. Such efforts have paid off and helped him lead a nation out of its dark days.
Peacekeeping in Africa has been a great success because we kept peace. Also, we restored the democracy in many parts of the African countries. And we are more and more appreciated by population in general in Africa, including Cote d'Ivoire.
In August 2011, Che's tenure in Cote d'Ivoire drew to a close. The Ivorians pledged to uphold democracy and the peace that he had helped them find. For world peace, veteran Korean diplomat Choi Young Jin is always on alert. He is ready to sacrifice his own life for an ideal cause and his lifelong dream to rid the world of conflict.